Почитувани добро вечер, јас сум Александар Видиновски, вие гледате Вести Плус на канал 5 телевизија. Вечерва со американската амбасадорка Анџела Агелер, амбасадорке. Ви благодарам што ја прифативте поканата.
Благодарам, Александар.
Да, вие не сте нова тука, веќе подолго време сте во Македонија, запознаени сте претпоставувам и со убавините кои што ги има нашата земја, со големата историја. Меѓутоа, за жал, како и повеќето држави на Балканот имаме и големи проблеми. Тоа се корупцијата, криминалот и можеби моментално најакутен проблем е тој што го имаме со Бугарија. Полека се ближи терминот кога што ќе треба пратениците да се одлучат дали се за внесување на Бугаријата во уставот или да ги отфрлат. Кажете ми, дали вие би што мислите, дали треба ние да го прифатиме да ја прифатиме ваквата преговарачка рамка, имајќи во предвид проблемите кои што ги имаме со Бугарија пред се во историјата и со нашите идентитетски прашања?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me here today. Thank you for letting me respond in English. I'm still working on my Macedonian. And let me say what a great honor it is for me to be here as the American ambassador to North Macedonia. As you know, I know this country. I lived and worked here for 3 years and left 10 years ago. And the wonders of this country that you described briefly are things that I care about very deeply. And it makes the historical, the cultural context of this country within the Balkans is so important and is so culturally rich. And I deeply appreciate that. I also recognize that this country has faced enormous challenges and that the people and the governments of this country have made genuine sacrifices. Frankly, when I left Skopje in 2013, had you told me that the country would change its name in order to get into NATO, I would not have believed it possible. And yet they have. And so the citizens of this country have a history of making difficult decisions for the good of the country. The country again finds itself at what I consider a pivotal moment, and the requirements to move forward towards the European Union now are very clear. And so I hope once again that the citizens of this country ask of their elected officials and ask of their leaders of their various parties to do the right thing to move this country forward towards the European Union. Because that is the stated goal of the citizens of this country. It has been since independence. And I hope that that the leaders of the citizens have the courage to move forward with those changes.
Колку минатото Соединетите Американски држави заедно се разбира со европските партнери работеа за тоа да се намалат барањата кои што доаѓаат у Софија, бидејќи знаеме, сите сме сведоци, тие директно задираа во македонскиот идентитет, јазикот, државата, па дури од кога постои оваа држава, нешто што е многу емотивно за македонските граѓани.
Yeah, I understand. And again, I understand that it has been difficult, but these negotiations between North Macedonia and Bulgaria are bilateral in nature, and they must be. It has to be the leaders of the two countries that are able to have these discussions to move forward. It is in the best interests of this country, however, to resolve the differences that they have, to meet the agreements that they made last summer. And to be quite honest, I wasn't here last summer. I was not a part of the group of people who reviewed the French proposal and who decided to move forward with it. But I have spoken with not only the American side, but those leaders here who were a part of it, and they feel very strongly that the position that was offered was the best deal possible for this country to move forward with accession. So now the question is how to move towards the European Union, because therein lies all sorts of economic growth opportunities for this country that I believe it needs and it wants. And so it is my hope that we stop looking to the past and some of those historical contexts, stop worrying about previous grievances and compromises, and instead look to the future. And I also believe, Alexander, very strongly that historians will look back at this moment in time as a very critical moment for this country, and it will look at the leaders of the different parties of this country and how they behaved and either applaud their choices or condemn them.
Да, имам исто така, ајде да речеме, овој процес што го нарушуваат, меѓутоа и други процеси, тоа се дезинформациите на кои што Македонија не е имуна. Гледаме дека различни наративи од различни центри доаѓаат во Македонија со пораки кои што зборуваат различни работи за актуелните политички ситуации. Тоа доаѓа и од Софија, меѓутоа многу е карактеристично со сите тие имаат еден ист наратив. Имаме впечаток како да доаѓаат од еден ист центар тие пораки. Колку ова е реално, колку вие го препознавате ова како проблем и колку е реален проблем за процесите кои што се случуваат во Македонија?
Well, listen, I think it's important to note that both the new Prime Minister and Foreign Ministers, and as we all know, that in Bulgaria there have been 5 elections in the last 2 years, but the new Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, as I said, have both indicated that they want very much for this country to be in the European Union, and I take them at their word. But the important thing, in my view, is what this country and its leadership does now, and not so much what happens in Sofia. And my hope is that, again, we look to the future and not to the past, and not to these grievances, and focus on what needs to be done. As we say in the United States, regardless of your political or historical context, the ball is in your court. It is the decision for the citizens and leaders of this country to decide to move forward towards the European Union. And very importantly, the only way to move away from pressures from any EU capital and its governments is to join the EU. And that is my hope for this country.
Така, кога сме веќе кај лажните вести, како што кажа, вие сте добар познавач на балканските прилики, ве прашувам во името на јавноста да се обидеме да ја расчистиме маглата околу уставните измени. Наједноставно кажано, за да можат сите да разберат. Што според вас може да изгубат македонските граѓани доколку Бугарите ги внесеме во уставот?
It's a great question because, frankly, I see no fog. I think it's very, very clear. I believe that the European Union has been crystal clear in saying what is required of this country to move forward in European accession and to become a full participating, valued member of the Euro-Atlantic community. And that is to meet the requirements of the agreement they made last summer, and then to move forward with the various processes of accession. What is fake news is the suggestion that anyone can renegotiate last summer's agreement. That is fake news. What is also fake news is that there's a better deal out there that we haven't discovered. Ambassador Geer from the European Union here in Skopje and Brussels have been very, very clear that this is the requirement to move forward. So again, rather than getting caught up in historical context and various grievances, then I think what is required of the officials that citizens of this country have elected is for them to act in their best interest and move forward towards the European Union. That is where economic growth opportunities, educational, social, trade, all of these other opportunities exist. And I very much hope that they make those tough choices.
Така, приближувањето кон Европската Унија секогаш скоро оди во парови. Македонија беше во пар со Хрватска, потоа беше со Србија, со Црна Гора, сега сме во Албанија. Стравувањата се сега доколку го испуштиме оваа можност, односно доколку не ги внесеме бугарите во уставот, дека ќе може и оваа спарка, ќе кажа, Македонија и Бугарија да биде, Македонија и Албанија, се извинувам, да биде разделена. Постои таква можност или сепак би оделе заедно кон Брисел?
Well, I think the United States is not a member of the European Union, as you know. We don't live in Europe, as it were, my country. But let me just say that the benefits that the United States gets from our partnership with the European Union is enormous. Our trade, transatlantic trade between the United States and the EU in 2021 was 1.2 trillion euros, trillion with a T. And that's important because that is an enormous benefit to the European Union and to the United States. Now, obviously, North Macedonia is a smaller country, but the benefits are there. And so, again, I hope that the decision is made and that North Macedonia can move forward with Albania. I will also say that the people that I have spoken to, and again, this is not a decision for the United States, this is in Brussels, but those with whom I've discussed the possibility of the Albanian, of the coupling of the two, is a general assumption that if North Macedonia does not meet its agreements, that there is a very real possibility that Albania would decouple and move forward without this country.
Да, исто така голем проблем за кој што ние како медиуми често известуваме, тоа е борбата против криминалот и корупцијата. Велиме дека е тука наш ендемски проблем. Тоа објавија од Соединетите американски држави на така наречената црна листа се најде струшкиот градоначалник Рамис Мерко, меѓутоа до сега освен од обвинителството што кажа колку предмети има за него, не видовме некоја друга конкретна реакција. Еве месеци помина, ништо не се смени. Очекувавте вие како амбасада некаква поконкретна реакција од македонските институции?
That's a great question, and it is my hope that the designations that we have announced in the last 2 months make it very, very clear that the United States can and will pursue all means possible to hold those accountable who participate in corrupt and criminal activities. It is important that those kinds of issues be addressed in order to move this country forward towards the broader European community. And frankly, as you know, and as the citizens of this country understand very well, it's important that those people be called out and held accountable. The important issue here to emphasize is that the Departments of State and Treasury and Commerce are required by U.S. law. When presented with evidence of corrupt or criminal activities, they must designate officials and in some cases impose sanctions on them. That is a U.S. law. Now, what the elected officials, the government, what in private individuals, what municipalities choose to do with those designations is up to the government and the people of North Macedonia. It's not up to the United States. We are required by law to take the actions we have, and now we look to see what results happen here and whether or not the judiciary, the public, and other institutions decide to take action. But I do very much hope that there are consequences for this kind of corrupt and criminal activity because the people of this country deserve better. And they understand that the corruption that they see and are victims of every day hurts their society and hurts this country.
Дали се разочарани од желбата или не желбата што ја гледате кај власти да се борат сериозно со криминалот и корупцијата?
I mean, again, this is a question for authorities here. And, I have to say that I am disappointed that corruption continues to be one of, if not the biggest challenges facing this country. It was when I was here before, but frankly, it has also been a systemic problem since independence 31 years ago. So one cannot blame one particular government or institution. It is the responsibility of the judiciary and every government, and frankly, of the citizens, because corruption does not happen by itself. One can't be corrupt all by myself. I can't be corrupt all by myself. It requires decisions and choices by individuals and by citizens and officials. And so I hope very much that there's a real change. And I also believe that part of the European integration process addresses those very issues and would be an enormous help.
Да се надеваме дека некогаш работите ќе се мрднат од мртва точка на тоа прашање, да се префрлиме малце сакам во регионот, случувањата на Косово, гледаме дека Србија и Косово се во вербална агресија изминатиот период, повторно има тензии, критики има Соединетите американски држави, Европската унија околу однесувањето на премиерот Албин Курти и неспроведувањето на тоа што беше, да речеме, во Охрид договорено, а тоа е заедницата на српски општини. Постои ли тука потенцијал повторно да ги гледаме случувањата од 99-та, 2000-та година, односно да има повторно воен конфликт?
Well, it's a very important question. I'm the ambassador to North Macedonia. I am very delighted to say that I have two very good friends who happen to be U.S. ambassadors in Belgrade and in Pristina. Chris Hill, who many people know here because he was our first ambassador in Skopje, is in Belgrade, and Jeff Hovenier is our outstanding ambassador in Pristina, and they are they are part of those conversations, and they couldn't be in better hands because of them. I will say, though, that I was in Ohrid with our Deputy Assistant Secretary, Gabe Escobar, during those very important discussions that were mediated by the High Representative Borrell. Both sides, both President Vučić and Prime Minister Kurti, agreed to certain conditions, and it is very much the hope of the United States that both leaders meet those conditions that they agreed to, because we want to see regional stability here. I know this country does as well, and so it is our fondest hope that they will take a hard, serious look at what those agreements were and to meet them.
Така, споминавте регионалната сигурност, тоа практично е најголемата загриженост овдека во Македонија, да не се случи конфликт на Косово и тој да се префрли на наша територија покрај тоа што е Македонија земја членка на НАТО. Постои ли таква, барем и теоретска можност за такво сценарио?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm as the U.S. ambassador to North Macedonia, I'm not in the midst of that, and that isn't as much a question for me. But history has shown us time and again in this region that conflicts between two countries can result in some very, very negative consequences. Let me say, though, and this is important going back to Ohrid, that I truly applaud the leadership of this country for hosting that and for playing what I think is a unique peacemaking role in this region. And I do believe that North Macedonia is the only country with the relationships with its citizens that can bring parties together. And I hope very much that they continue to do so because it shows real leadership.
Амбасадорке, накрај ќе повторно ќе вратам околу темата со уставните измени. ВМРО ДПМН и председателот на партијата Мицковски се јасни дека тие нема да гласаат за уставните измени, велат под овие услови. Дали може нешто да се направи оваа претендничка партија да се предомисли? Еве, например, тие како еден услов, да речеме, го стават да се натера на некој начин Бугарија да ги почитува 16 пресуди на Европскиот суд за човекови права, се однесуваат на правата на здржување на тамо на македонците. Има ли некој воопште механизми да ја натера Бугарија да го почитува меѓународното право?
Well, I think that's probably a question that's best directed to Professor Mickoski, who is president of ВМРО ДПМН, and that I can't really answer for him. But what I can say is what I have said before, that I hope very much that members of parliament, that leaders and members of all political parties, again, recognize this pivotal moment for this country and make decisions that are for the good of the citizens and not in the interests of their particular political or personal aspirations. This country can and will benefit enormously from membership in the European Union and membership in the broader transatlantic community, frankly. And it is the stated goal of this country, and 80%, almost 80% of the citizens of this country want to be a part of the European Union. The path forward is very, very clear, and again, it is my hope that the leaders and elected officials who were elected in order to do the right thing for the benefit of their citizens make those tough choices now and move their country forward to greater prosperity, greater stability and greater opportunity.
Амбасадор, ќе ви благодарам за гостувањето во Канал 5 и за одговорите.
Thanks so much, Alexander.
Почитувани, ви благодарам и вам и останете со програмата на Канал 5.